Welcome to the Santam Insure Your Future Money Bootcamp with me, Mapalo
and me, Maya Fisher-French.
To give our listeners a bit of background, we have been working with Santam staff members where we take them through a money bootcamp.
And last year, after seeing the incredible changes that these individuals went through, we realized that there was an opportunity to take this money journey to a broader audience. So thank you very much to Santam for sponsoring this podcast.
Being aware of what's happening with your money and being conscious with your decisions, it does reduce the anxiety because then I know where my money went. I know what I did with my money. I can account for every cent physically. Whereas before, I would just account for what I spend on just from the top of my head. That's why when having to go back and look, I would feel anxious because what are the chances that there's something else that shouldn't be there? But now because I'm keeping record of it and it's physical and I can see it, the picture is quite clearer. I'm no longer as anxious about money, even say anxious at all.
As you may have gathered from the intro voice clip today, we're going to be talking about getting control of your day-to-day spending. Basically, how to put together a budget or a spending plan. And you had just heard from Thato in that intro voice clip about how her anxiety reduced when she drew up a budget. Mapalo, do you see something similar when you're coaching people?
You know what, my people are always reluctant to actually get down to the numbers. What I often see, people say, I do have a budget. I say, okay, send me your budget. And normally people write my income, my house or rent, car, then they say miscellaneous. And that's it. That's it. And I say, okay, actually, how your budget is this way. You write down everything that you're spending. And people always say, I was not aware just how much I'm spending. I thought that I spent this amount on X, but when I finally started tracking my expenses, I realized that way far from what I wrote down in that budget.
But now, we talked about, right in the first episode, we spoke about money and emotions. And in this moment of anxiety, so what you've described there is like you go from this place of denial or not really knowing and just having this mild anxiety about the fact you don't really know what's happening to your money. But there must also be an anxiety when you are faced with the truth of where your money's going.
Yes.
So when does that anxiety shift away to say, I'm back in control again?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. About 2 years ago, I worked with Pam, and she used to just help me around with admin. And I asked her, do you have a budget? Because I want you to start investing. At that time, she didn't have any investments whatsoever. And I was encouraging her to invest. She didn't have any debt, luckily. So she said, no, I don't have money to invest. I said, there's no way, Pam. You probably do have money. Show me your budget and let's go through this. And one of the things I did with her, I said, okay, give me your bank statement. Let's print it. Let's go through what's happening there. Do you know what her words were? There's no way that I've earned that amount of money. There's no way that there's such amount of money that has gone through my account. It's impossible. So she didn't realize because she does sorts of gigs on the side as well. She does hair, she does this. Okay. So she actually had quite a lot of money going through her account, but because she wasn't budgeting, she would spend frivolously throughout the month. And then she would say, I don't have money. And I said to her, okay, so clearly in the past 6 months, in the past 12 months, you've been making some sort of money and you can afford to invest. And once she did that, she says, I don't even feel it anymore. The first 2 months she complained, but after that she didn't feel it anymore. But she knew exactly what expenses were and she was tracking that, and she even knew when she was a little bit off budget.
And that's what I find when we work with people is that there's this anxiety and lack of feeling of control. Then they do the budget, they get the handle on the spending, and yes, it's a bit scary at first, but the feeling of knowing where your money goes changes everything. It gives you a real sense of control. And I think at this point, on this really, really important point, we're going to bring in Sbongile. So Mapalo, you introduced Sbongile.
Yes, so Sbongile was one of my mentees from last year's cohort, right? And what I loved about her, she was really willing. She came in very similarly to the stories that we've just mentioned, where she's like, what do you mean I need to budget? There's nothing to budget here, right? But she gave herself, she gave into the process and Sbongile, thank you so much.
Yes. Where do I start?
So just give us a bit of background into when you started the journey. What did you feel about budgeting?
I felt much like the person you worked with. I really don't have enough money to budget. I earn a measly salary. It wasn't a salary. What's there to budget? Plus, I'm young. I have time. And is it really that important? So those are the things going through my mind. And whenever you'd say something, I'd be like, well, that's a bit too big. Maybe I should first wait until I have a bit more money. Then I'll be able to fully see the benefit of maybe putting my money into that tax-free savings account every month.
Yeah. We're always waiting for more money.
Yeah. No,
we'll do it when we have more money. You know what the amazing thing is you never have enough money.
No.
Because there's always something else to spend your money on.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And, and it goes for everything, with budgeting. No, I don't have enough to budget. That's even more reason to budget. The fact that you don't have enough says that I need to just apply myself a little bit more further and say, how do I allocate my money in the way that is going to make me happy, in the way that I can still pay off debt and save for my future? You have every reason then for you to budget.
Absolutely. And so how did you start off with, how did this start? Like what was the starting point, Sbongile?
It's all such a blur. I can't remember. All I remember is getting to a point where I feel, wow, this isn't bad. Like what you said, you don't feel the burden anymore, even though you look at your salary and you think, I could probably do better. But because of the budgeting, I felt less burdened by the anxiety of not having enough money. I can't remember when it started, when I decided, you know what, I'm going to listen to her. I'm going to put my all in it. But yeah, it's all a blur.
Yeah. But one of the things that really liked about Sbongile is that she went and printed out her bank statements. Because one of the things, again, people say, and she was saying it as well, was, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough money to do this or to do that. I said, it's fine. You might not have the full amount. Might not have a large chunk, but you can still do something with what you have right now. Yeah. And she started going through her bank statement. Tell us that story about the fees.
Oh, firstly, let me just say, the person you were working with said, there's no way I have this much money. I also fell into the same trap because I also do a few gigs on the side and I didn't realize how much was coming in. But yeah, I saw the bank fees and I was like, no way. No, I actually tracked. I was like, okay, this fee, they are saying it's for this. Okay, this fee comes in every time I do a cash send. Okay, so cash send is this much. Every time I do a cash send, this is how much I'm paying. So then what's this fee? And, I called around. I'm like, well, I don't understand what this fee is for. And then they explained. And then I was able to get some of the money, not a lot, back because I was like, well, this is a wrong purchase.
So the bank had made mistakes on your bank statement?
Yes, but also I'm an Uber addict. Uber as well, double charged. But the just seeing how much I pay in fees, because I thought I really only pay R5 in bank fees, but all those other transactions that I make, those immediate payments, they all add up.
So interesting. It's just seeing it. And, Sbongile, we work with so many people and that whole thing about how, and you said it's this sort of like, I have rent, I have groceries, whatever. But that's no one's budget equals what they actually are spending. They always spend more. And it's that aha moment of, I go to the shops to buy milk and I spend 300 Rand.
How does milk equate to 300 Rand?
Yeah. What's actually happening? Did you have those moments at all when you started tracking?
After a while, I realized I saw a pattern. I realized whenever I love cooking for my friends and I'd plan a meal, but then I'd go to the shop and I'd think, let's also get desserts. Let's also get this. So that's how milk turns into 300 Rand.
That's we solved a mystery.
So I noticed some spending habits and really now what I'm doing is making sure that I separate, I give myself allowances in my budget, like you said. I know that I like cooking for my friends and I don't want to deprive myself of that. So each month I'll give myself this much and I only use from that much. So, yeah.
I love that.
I love it. But I also I think this is one of the reasons Mapalo really wanted Sbongile on the specific topic is because you went through this transformation period. You went from being an intern into receiving a stipend kind of income to actually receiving a full salary. Right. And the shift in that, how does already knowing how to budget impact the fact that you get that first salary? Because that blows a lot of first-time workers out. It's like one of my mentees said, when she started working, she suddenly had this extra income. And she was like, what do I do with this extra income? And then the banks were phoning her and saying, guess what? You've got extra income. Yeah. Have this loan. And she said, oh, why not? So if the money doesn't have a purpose, it can go the wrong way.
I remember even before I knew that I'd get permanent employment at my company, I was telling Mapalo, I'm in this program and it's going to end soon and I hope I'm going to get permanent employment, but I already have a plan for that. I know I have this debt and I want that done. Yeah. So by the time the extra income came in, I already knew what I can live off of. And I just gave myself just a little bit more to reward myself. And that was my budget for living. And then everything else, now I know, like I was saying earlier on, everything else now I know, okay, this has a purpose. This is going towards my debt. This is going towards saving. This is going toward retirement. So yeah, it helps. Budgeting helps you know what you can reasonably live off of. And then what you can do with the extra money. If you're not sure, you can, it's like, the options abound once you realize, okay, I have so much money left to do whatever I want with. And
I love the fact that, for me, you mentioned something very important, that while you were tracking your expenses, you started seeing habits, right? And I love the fact that even now, because oftentimes people think when you talk about budgeting, oh my gosh, I need to deprive myself of this. But you said, I give myself an allowance for the things that I do like. If that allowance is done, then you know that that's done, right? But you're still living within your means, number one. You've allocated for the things that you love and are passionate about, and yet you are still saying, I want to save, I want to squash my debt. I think for me, that is where the power in budgeting comes from, that you are giving, you have control over your money, and it's not the other way around.
Absolutely. And, also now I want to maybe talk a little bit about the types of approaches to budgeting. Like, you hear zero-based budgeting and 50, 30, 20. And we must maybe unpack those, because one of the things I find is that I don't think we should be prescriptive about people's budgeting. Just like you said, you've got a plan with your money. But some of the things, your plans may be very different, depending whether you've got kids or you're single or you've got a plan to get married, or like me, you have date night in the budget. Everyone's got different things. So I often find people look at each other, or they want some sort of rules to budget by, Mapalo. I mean, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about some of those rules out there and what we think of them? Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, Maya, I think having a rule, I love rules. I'm just going to put it, I love rules. I feel like it's a benchmark that I can work towards, but also that fits my situation. So I take a look at the rules or the different approaches and I say, which one suits me, which one suits my lifestyle? But I kind of also, before I found one that worked for me, I tried and tested all of the above before, right? And I said, okay, actually, this one suits me, suits my personality also. Because I think that you can never, ever run away. You can never run away from your character, from your personality. So for some people, they want that rigid percentages and they can do that. But for someone like me, I like the zero-based budgeting, where I know exactly how much I'm earning. And at the end there, I want it to be there as zero, right? Meaning that
meaning that you spent all the money. That's not what it means.
No. Not meaning that.
Well,
all the income came and I blew through it. No, it means that I know allocating every cent towards what. Right.
So every rand every cent has a purpose.
Exactly, Maya. So I know that the first thing, my investments will go off. I know that my kids' fees, and you know what I say, Maya? one of the things that I will never, ever touch, my tax-free savings account and my retirement annuity. The world can shake, but those two things, I don't care what is happening in my life, they go off.
Okay, we're going to talk about a survival budget just now.
Yes.
That's important, yeah. So those are your kind of non-negotiables.
Yes, when it comes to budgeting. But also, so for me, it's the zero-based budgeting where everything is zero, but I've allocated to everything that is important. Eating out, I've allocated to saying, I love holidays, so I have a budget for that. All the important things, of course. Then there is the 50, 30, 20% budgeting rule. I find it, I can't move within this one.
I hate that. Have you tried that?
I wanted to say, I love that.
Oh,
that's what
so you talk us through the 50, 30, 20.
Yes, so basically 50% is your living expenses, what you live off of. And I think 30 is investments and 20 is debt, or the other way around.
No, you see, the point is that everyone's got different. So some say 50s your necessities, 30s wants, and 20s savings. So everyone's got a different rule.
But for me, I looked at that and I was like, I hate the idea of debt, even though I have the school debt and what, I just hate it. So I was like, I can't spend 50%. I can't fathom spending 50%. As much as I earn, I can't fathom spending 50% on living. So for me, I tweaked it a bit. Mine is more like a 35 living, 40, because I'm single. I don't have a lot of expenses, so I'm able to go that low. And then everything else is just savings and investments. So in that 35, that's my debt. That's everything. And then everything. Oh, sorry. And then I also mixed it a bit with the zero-based budgeting. So my first layer is, okay, I want to split it in this way. And then the money that's left that I live off of, then I do the zero budgeting. Like, okay, this one is going here. This one is going towards my trips. I also love trips. So it's also mixing.
And so it's interesting. So you kind of wanted some percentages, but what I find with the 50, 30, 20 rule, people always say, so Maya, do school fees fit in this? Or to me, everybody's individual and it's different. Everyone interprets those numbers differently. So I agree with you. And I mean, if you have children that you're educating, your necessities are going to be very different to a single person who may still be living at home. So I think sometimes those rules, you've got to look at it in your own context. And for me, the big rules are around saving and debt. I always say if you can go 25% savings, if you can maintain that, and that would be your retirement fund in there, your tax-free savings account, and your emergency fund. Yeah. Critical. I'm sure Mapalo's had you build.
On that.
Yes. Mapalo's had you building. So to me, having your savings there at least at 25%, that's the one side. And then if you are needing to take on debt, you're buying a house, buying a car. The max, we get told the max should be 35%. Because when I speak to debt counselors about people who go into debt, who are over indebted and have to go into debt review, it's when they go past 35%. So they're sitting at 40% debt, they become financially vulnerable to a shock. So you don't really want to go over 35%, but that doesn't mean 35% on store cards and credit cards. That is, I would say, you're probably maxing 5% repayment on shorter term debt, right? We're not talking about maxing out at 35%. But then, if you think about it, if you want to buy a house, you're probably going to be spending 30% of your salary.
Exactly.
So where's the car coming in? Yeah. So that's when you start realizing that you've got to have steps. You've got to have paid off your car before you buy your house, because you can't really be doing both if you're going to stick to those rules. So I think for me, those are the two. And then in between them, we all figure out, your needs and wants. And, I always say, maybe sometimes some people prefer to drink champagne, but they'll eat baked beans. Yeah. You get to decide what a need and want is in your life. But I think you've got to make sure you're saving enough and that you're not taking on too much debt out of it.
No, absolutely, Maya. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, for me, it's for a lot of people, they just want the guidance of a benchmark. Right? That, okay, this is what the benchmark is, and how far as possible can I come close to the benchmark? Or how can I make that rule work for me and my circumstances? But I feel like just find something that you are comfortable with, that you can go with, and so that, your finances are put together.
And I think we'd like to compare ourselves to other people. So people may, one of the big ones, like, how much are you spending on groceries? Am I overspending at Woolworths or whatever, So sometimes those are interesting conversations. You say, well, I'm actually spending more on groceries than I am on my home loan. Maybe there's a problem. So I suppose there is that sort of guideline that you want to, especially as somebody starting work and maybe you're renting for the first time, that how much should my rent be of my salary? Do I max it? So I agree. I think there should be some guidelines, but within that, you've got to work out what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Maya.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about, we've spoken about zero-based budgeting, 50, 30, 20% budgeting rule and how you can work around that. What if you hit a financial shock in your family? What kind of budget should you be going with? Should we just continue as is or what?
So, Mapalo, you and I, we need to start a club. It's called the Survival Budget Club. So Mapalo and I both work for ourselves. We have for many years. And I have a husband who's worked for himself. And there have been huge financial shocks in our lifetime. And my first financial shock was when I was 32. We just bought a huge new big house because we now had our second child and it was a big fixer-upper. And we thought this was a clever idea. We've, buying homes. And I lost my job. My husband lost his job. And we went on carrying on spending like nothing happened. And suddenly dug ourselves this really big debt hole. And it was after that we put together our first budget. And that was the survival budget. And I remember crying. I was in tears because I thought, this is what's coming in. This is what's going out. And it was the first time we had to work out what is the minimum that we need to live. So no luxuries. These are only needs.
Yeah.
Like, what is that minimum that we can survive? And what's really great with a budget like that is that you always know what that number is. And it gives you some confidence, I think, going forward. But I do have to tell you that in all those times that we've had to revert to the survival budget, which has been a few times, we've never touched our savings or investments.
Oh, wow.
That's been the one thing we never touched. I look back and I think that's the greatest gift we ever gave ourselves.
Yeah. And Maya, and I think you see how also this ties back to money and emotions. That, yes, you looked at that number and you wept, right? But there was room for you guys to talk about money, because what I often find is that when you hit financial rock bottom or financial challenges as partners, some people are afraid to talk about money, to say, you know what? I'm not able to bring in what I was able to bring in anymore. And they keep quiet and keep on getting further and further into debt. And I'll tell you my story with my husband. So when I started Women in Finance, I was barely making anything, right? And I didn't have enough savings. The advice is that you should at least have 6 months, 7 months. I had absolutely nothing, right? But he was there, supported me. Even with him, when his business went down, when it was really, really struggling, the one person whom we are always able to talk about money, but this time around, he said, I was just feeling shame. I was feeling shame to tell you that, you know what, I won't be able to make that payment. And I'm a very persistent person, by the way. And I said, no. And I know him. I said, one thing about us, we always talk about what's happening with our finances, at least twice a month. And this time around, you keep on saying, okay, I'll come back. I said, no, today's the day we're going to sit down. And I finally realized that, okay, you know what, things are not going well in business. Then I said, okay, what is it that we need to in this household just to make sure that everything's above board? And that conversation even just changed our relationship even more. And I think even for the better, that I knew exactly when he had money, he would say, okay, this is what I'm able to do and this is what's happening. But what often happens, we keep quiet and we just hope that somehow
something will work out.
Yes.
Something work well. I must tell you, I remember when I was working in stockbroking, we had a client who had lost his job and he didn't tell his wife for 6 months. He pretended to go to work. So he was just drawing on savings to pretend he was earning a salary.
6
6 months. So you need to be so careful about, and I always think, we often, I don't know what Sbongile, if Mapalo put you on a survival budget, most of the time when we're coaching people, they come in and they are in deep financial difficulty and they're trying to pay off debt. And you've got to put together a budget that's just, the survival budget.
Yeah, right.
But that is, and very quickly that survival budget, you're able to live more than that because your debts are paid off quite quickly. But it's always just that one, and it sounds to me like you've got that. You said you know exactly what it is because you were an intern, you know what you can kind of survive on. And does that give you kind of a comfort?
100%. I no longer have to worry that I won't be able to do the things that I want. I know I'm talking a lot about that, but that's the more important things for me, because I know I'll always be able to cover food and a place to live. I have father if things go down. But it does help me know that, one, my current situation is under control. My current financial situation is under control. I won't find myself on the back foot. And also, a year from now, I will be fine, whatever happens. It helps. I remember when I was waiting to hear whether I'll be taken on at my current company, a lot of people were stressed for me. They were like, so what are you going to do? How are you going to live? How are you getting money? And I was like, but I'm fine. I know I will be fine 3-6 months down the line, because I've built habits. I know what I need, and I'm not overexerting myself. That helps a lot, to know what you can live off of, and the comfort, the certainty that you get from that is really wonderful.
But I think where the challenge comes in is when you start a family.
Oh my!
You're taking on a bond, and you're taking on school fees, because your survival budget changes quite quickly.
No, quite.
Suddenly you've got this mortgage, and you've got school fees. And one of the big things that I think we all need to have a very honest conversation on is the cost of education, and committing ourselves to so when you put your child into grade 1, and if you choose a private school, for example, a fee-paying school, you've got to escalate that at 10% a year. And, you've got to think about these things. So your survival budget does actually have to grow quite a bit when you start a family. So it's, there's a survival budget when you're single, and there's a survival budget with a family, and it becomes quite challenging.
But that's
maybe I should just stay single. Sorry.
That's an excellent budgeting strategy.
Very sorry, Mapalo.
But that's why we're talking about, whatever stage of your life you're at, just think about the things that you desire. Do you desire to have children? And how quickly, and already start thinking about the financial implications. Because yes, it's wonderful to have a baby, and they are so nunus, but they are so expensive.
Oh, very expensive. You can't take them back.
No, you can't return to sender. Okay, Maya, now, give us the practical steps. How does one start a budget?
Well, I think the starting point is, and this is what I often do, and I did with our mentees, and it's a good starting point, is exactly, and it's what you did. You pull out your bank statements, but not only that, get them to write down everything they're spending for a month.
Yeah.
One of mine last year was not happy with that. She said, you just want to know what I'm spending, and I don't want to share this with anyone. And I said, you don't have to share it with anyone. You just have to do it. Yeah. And that reveals a lot. It reveals the habits. So that's always, there are so many aha moments in that month, because people are like, oh, when I go to the shops, I spend 300 Rand for a thing of milk. Or it's this habit. When I take I remember one couple, we were doing money makeover. They realized that when they went shopping, they took their daughter. And that landed up costing them money, because they landed up buying things for the daughter.
Leave the child at home.
So exactly that. So you start to pick up your habits. You also start to pick up your cash flow behavior during the month. So one woman from Money Makeover, she had she would run out of money halfway through the month. She was on the credit card by halfway through the month. And what she realized was that she had that wealth effect on payday. Don't we all get the wealth effect? Yeah, I'm rich. And she'd buy something for her daughter, and they'd go out and they'd do this and the other, and she hadn't budgeted for the month. So what she started to do is to say, right, nappies. She said, I'd be putting nappies on the credit card halfway through the month. Sure. But now, because she tracked everything, she said, oh, I buy X amount of nappies. So let me do that at the beginning of the month. On payday, I will buy all the nappies for the month. I will put on enough electricity for the whole month. I will buy all my non-perishables for the whole month. So that she was only left with some weekly expenses, which is your fresh fruit and vegetables maybe, and transport. And she was able to plan better. Within a month, she was making it to the end of the month. Oh, wow. She wasn't halfway. So a lot of it is that self-awareness. I think I would say to anyone, just start. There's no judgment, no nothing. What you're trying to do is see your habits. So if you start judging and adapting, you're going to miss your habits. So there's no, just do it like normal. Just track everything, write everything down, and then use that as a reflection. So that when you start filling in your budgeting and your expenses, you start to say, okay, how can I adjust it? Where is the waste kind of going? And I think what's also important is not carry judgment on what is wants and needs. I have a little bit of a problem with that. And the reason I say that, I mean, we all know what a want and need is. I mean, you really need to buy nappies for your child. A want would be a dress for your daughter. Yeah. But within your budget, you may say, so I'll give you an example. My husband and I, from the age my son was 6 weeks old, we started date night once a week. And that was so vital for our marriage, to be together, to have that moment out of the house together as a couple. I think it saved our marriage. But there are other things I'm prepared to go without then. So maybe I don't buy so many clothes, or there are other things I don't. So it's about what brings you joy and happiness with your money. So when you do the nice things, are they really delivering? I mean, Sbongile, you really agreeing with that?
I do. I love doing things for other people I love, and that brings me a lot of joy. What I can say is that budgeting helped me do those things and feel better about myself in my relationships. Like, I'm doing something, I'm showing up. I mean, of course, it's not about the material things, but I'm able to be in my relationships the way that I wanted to be, within budget.
Yeah,
within
budget.
Yes.
But exactly, and it's just simply observing, saying, okay, so, and we're talking about holidays, and it's a priority. Holidays we love, so there's other things that we don't do. Like, and I think the fact that I don't have car finance is probably, we not having an expensive car that I'm having to pay off allows me to go on holidays. So those are for somebody else, the expensive car may be more worth it to them, and they don't want to travel. So I don't think there's any value judgment thing. I think it's about saying, how am I spending my money? And
what do you value? What are your priorities?
Your value. Ask that question to your family. That is and I think it was Joe Biden before he was president.
I'm like, are you bringing up here?
I'm not bringing in American politics. It's just that he said this. He was still vice president, and he said, "Don't tell me your values. Show me your budget, and I will tell you your values." And and that is very powerful, because if you sit in a room with people and you say, what is your dream in the next 5 years? I want to travel. I want to study overseas. I want to buy a house. Okay, show me your budget. Where have you put money aside for any of those things? And so don't tell me that's what you want. Because if you really wanted it, you'd be doing it.
Absolutely.
But I want to ask you, so that, to me, I always start off with write it down, start to understand it. Do you use any of the apps? Are there any tracking apps that you're banking or
no, Maya?
That you use?
I'm so old school. I've had discussions with my friends. Some of them really love and enjoy apps. I love seeing things in paper. Like, I have an Excel spreadsheet. I'll actually show it to you. It has actual and it has budgeted, then has actual for each and every single month for the entire year. Then in there, I know, okay, my son's birthday is in May, the other son's birthday is in June, my husband's birthday is in September, all the birthdays in the family, my dad, my mom, my siblings. So already I know that each month is not going to be the same. Right? Because that's another mistake that we do, that we just have this budget and we're like, okay, this is my budget, but every month is not the same. Yeah. We have our anniversary, we like doing something then, and our anniversary is in January. So you can imagine.
So you're the payday loan victim.
So literally by the previous year, we're already planning for that, saying, okay, where are we going? And it's cheaper if we book on time, that sort of thing. Then Maya, I know it sounds very drastic, but to what you said with the other mentee, she was quite upset. I have a notebook where I write down everything. So you see, I bought a cappuccino.
It's in the notebook.
With tip, it was 41 Rand. It's going to go into my little notes. So I didn't bring the book because we're in Cape Town now, but I'm going to write it down under my notes. Then I know, okay, on day one in Cape Town, I spent 41 Rand. This how much on Uber. Then I try to go consolidate. Then I see. And also what I've realized by doing that, I'm just more conscious of my decisions when it comes to money. And one of the things before I did this, I used to spend, then say, oh, okay, I'm going to look at my budget at the end of the month. But it never worked. And I realized that I actually spent way more than what I write in my budget. So it just made me feel very silly that I'm going to go write that, oh, I spent so much in this week. Like, where's this money coming from? So for me, it's just that awareness constantly. And I've even seen with my kids, I mean, my 8-year-old turning 9, he will tell you, okay, I got tuck money for today. I didn't want to spend the rest of it. He knows that, okay, your budget, maybe it's $100 or $50, let's call it whatever. But he never spends that exact amount. He will tell you, no, I want the rest of it to go towards my bank account, So I think for me, more than anything, when it comes to budgeting, it's just the awareness and also getting to know yourself Because there's something about money, right? It's not just numbers. You are actually getting to know yourself.
And I want to tell you something very interesting. The banks know you. They analyze all of your spending data.
Ooh.
And they use that information. And Google knows your spending behavior. Everyone knows your behavior except you.
So, Maya,
take control.
I tell you something? When we started talking about our survival budget, do you know the bank actually sent me a message and said, we are seeing a different pattern of spending. Are you okay?
Are you okay?
Yes. Is everything okay? Have you gotten an increase? Have you, so they were just putting different scenarios. Like, okay, do you need help? Is it because your business is making more money? So I was like.
The banks track, Sbongile, I have to tell his face.
Yes.
He's just incredulous. She's like, what? Let me tell you something. Time Bank has got relationship with Pick n Pay Smart Shopper.
Yeah.
They use Pick n Pay Smart Shopper data to find out if somebody's about to default. They said if somebody starts moving from fresh vegetables or frozen to canned, they know there's a trajectory.
Maya.
They are using all of our data to monitor us. So don't you think we should use our own data to monitor ourselves?
Exactly.
So if the bank knows what you're spending and how you're spending and your spending habits, I think you should. Right. And I think that is probably the most powerful thing I can say about it is really know yourself.
Yeah, because everybody else knows.
Everybody else knows your spending behavior. I mean, I use 22/7 quite a lot, and I like it. It also tells me like your biggest debit orders and you've spent this much on groceries or this. So it does give me that, but my husband's a big Excel spreadsheet person and we do work on that Excel spreadsheet. But the other thing is just you were talking about, budgeting for those, not unexpected, those events are going to happen and planning for them. And one of the big mistakes people make is the school fees come every 3 months and then they borrow money. They're going to overdraft for school fees. Like school fees are coming.
You know that for sure.
They know that. So what you need, you do is you take something, you make it, you say for example, it's 12,000 Rand a year in school fees, but you pay it twice a year. So 6,000 each. That's still 1,000 Rand a month. Put the 1,000 Rand a month in your budget. That's school fees, 1,000 Rand, and transfer that money. This is exactly what I do. I transfer money into my little savings account linked to on my banking app for that, so that when it comes, it's there. And that's one of the ways of taking those. And I have a holiday slush fund and I have a gift fund and all of that. And that's the way I use to smooth over those months where I know those things are coming.
Yeah. Very important, budgeting. Any last words, especially now that you are a permanent employee?
Right. Because of my job, I really it's made me to love efficiency, to champion it above everything else. And I just realized now, hearing you speak, that maybe my budget's inefficient. Not that I'm knocking myself down. That money that I save, or like give myself grace, I could really just do I know there'll be a birthday, and I know I won't really have to spend that money this month. So I'm just learning a lot. That's my last words. I
think we all learn from each other.
Yes,
I learn from every day
absolutely.
from somebody I engage with.
Absolutely.
So I think that's probably a great lesson. So I think that's fantastic. And I hope the listeners have really got some insights into getting motivated to start the budget. We have got an example of a budget in the link, in the descriptor. That'll take you to a resource page where you'll have everything. So fill in that budget. Yeah. But please don't just go and fill in and think, this is what I think I spend. Go track it for a month before you actually start completing it. I mean, there's some you may be able to complete, like your mortgage, but go start actually tracking it. And then please share your insights with us by dropping us a voice note to 062 174 0145.
Until next time, see you soon.